everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. So this is the first time that I've ever done this tag. I love watching everybody's videos on this tag and decided that this year I wanted to participate. So let's get started. Question 1. Best book you've read this year so far? And this was a tough one, as I've read over 200 books in the first 6 months of the year, so I have lots of books that I've really enjoyed. So narrowing it down is going to be hard, so I'm going to pick the first one that came to my head when I read this question, and that was The Polar Bear Explorers Club by Alex Bell. I just absolutely adored this book. I loved the adventure of it and the atmosphere. It's a polar fantasy, and we're following Stella, who wants to be part of the Polar Bear Explorers Club just like her dad, but girls aren't allowed, and her dad manages to convince them to give her a shot, so she gets to go on an expedition. And I just love seeing her relationship with her dad and how her relationship with the other junior explorers in the club develops. This book just had so many of the things that I love in middle grade. It was whimsical, it was adventurous. You had a group of kids trying to figure out how to work together and seeing their relationships and friendships develop throughout the book. And I really, really loved it. So while I'm not sure it's the best or my favorite book that I've read this year, it is definitely up there. Question 2, best sequel you've read this year. And for this, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to say some of the Warriors books. So if you've been watching any of my videos on my channel this year, you'll know that I've been trying to read the entire Warriors universe this year, and there's well over 50 books in this series at this point, between the different arcs and the mangas and the novellas and the super editions. It's one of my favorite series ever, and I really wanted to do a reread and catch up on them, so I have been putting an effort to get through them all, and I've gotten through quite a lot of them. And several of them have to be on my best sequels list because I just absolutely adored them. Off the top of my head, I really loved the Tiger Star and Sasha and the Sky Clan mangas. I loved the super edition that followed Yellowfang, and I really loved the concluding books in arcs 4 and 5. So those are just some of the best sequels I read this year. Like, they're all sequels in some way, shape, or form because they're part of the Warriors universe. And it would be very, very hard for me to narrow it down to one that I preferred over the others. So my answer is some of the Warriors books I've read this year. Question 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. So for this, I've got 2 answers. The first is The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. I loved both the Flat Share and The Switch by Beth O'Leary. So when I saw that she had a new book coming out, it was definitely up there on my books that I wanted to read. I haven't yet got a chance to read it, but I'm definitely hoping to get to it in the second half of 2021. And the other would be the Ocean Squid Explorers Club. This is the 4th book in the Polar Bear Explorers Club. And as I mentioned earlier, the Polar Bear Explorers Club is one of my favorite books I've read this year. And I've read both the 2nd and 3rd books in the series. And I'm very curious to see what happens when we switch to new characters, but in the same world. So I definitely want to pick up the Ocean Squid Explorers Club before the end of 2021. Question 4, most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. So for this, I have 3. The first is The Tale of Sorcery by Chris Colfer, and this is the 3rd book in his A Tale of Magic series. The moment I could pre-order this, I did, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. I've really enjoyed getting to see Bristol's adventures, and I'm looking forward to diving back into that series. Another book I'm really looking forward to reading is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I have no idea what this book is about, but I absolutely loved The House in the Cerulean Sea, and I'm just so excited to read another book by TJ Klune and get to see if I love it as much as I did The House in the Cerulean Sea. And the 3rd book would be Frostheart 3 by Jamie Littler. And from what I can tell, this comes out September 29th. And it doesn't even have a name yet or a cover. So I think it's interesting that it's coming out in the next few months and none of that's been released. But from what I've seen, it is indeed coming out this year. And book 2 left in a place that made me want to throw the book across the room because I did not have access to book 3. So there's no way this can't be on my list of most anticipated releases because I need that book like yesterday. Question 5, biggest disappointment. So for this, there are two that come to mind. The first is The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. I had loved The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and I was really expecting to enjoy The Hunting Party more than I did. I think I gave it 3 stars. So it wasn't a bad book. It was just, I remember finding the characters all very, very annoying, and I just kind of wish they could all end up dead, which then I wasn't really rooting for anybody to not be the killer or to survive. And I wanted so much more out of that book, and I didn't get it, and I was expecting to enjoy it more than I did, so it has to be one of my biggest disappointments. And the other is The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. This is another book where I was just left wanting more. I had seen a lot of people talking about how much they enjoyed it, so I went into it expecting it to be more enjoyable than it was, and it just didn't click for me. It was another one where, again, I just wanted more out of it, and I didn't get it. Question 6, biggest surprise. So I have 2 for this as well. The first is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I was not expecting to enjoy this book anywhere near as much as I did. I have just started to dip my toe into reading classics, and I had no idea what to expect with Rebecca, but I ended up really, really enjoying it. I liked that it was kind of like a thriller mystery, which, again, I went into it with completely no expectations for what this book was going to be, so I wasn't expecting to get as invested in the mystery as I was. So that was definitely a pleasant surprise. The other one would be the Saga series by Brian K. Vaughan. I did not expect to like that at all. I am not really a huge graphic novels reader, though I have read a lot more this year than I have in previous years. But on top of that, I wasn't expecting an adult kind of sci-fi fantasy series that had like nudity in it to be something that I enjoyed. It just didn't feel like the type of book that I was going to sink my teeth into, and yet I have been massively enjoying this series, and I will read as many volumes as Brian K. Vaughan wants to put out. Question 7, new favorite author, debut or new to you? And for this, again, I have 2 answers. The first is Aidan Thomas. I absolutely adored Cemetery Boys. That could have easily been my answer for the first question of best book I've read this year. I also really enjoyed Lost in the Neverwoods, so I'm definitely enjoying Aidan's work, and I will be reading more from Aidan in the future for sure. And my other answer is Alex Bell, who wrote the Polar Bear Explorers Club. Like I said earlier, I've read the first 3 books in the series, and I've really, really loved them. There's no way Alex Bell couldn't have been my answer to this question. Question 8 is new fictional crush, and I don't have an answer for this because I don't really get crushes on fictional characters, so I'm just going to skip this one. Question 9 is new favorite character, and for this I have 3. First up is Mothflight from the Warrior series. She appears in the Dawn of the Clans arc and in her own super edition, and I really enjoyed getting to meet her character in the Dawn of the Clans and then getting to have a deep dive into her life and seeing the important role she played in the development of the clans. I felt she was such a strong character who had to go through so much, and she's just become a really special character in the Warriors universe to me, and I hope that at some point I get to spend more time with her. The second is Apollo from the Trials of Apollo series by Rick Riordan. So this is kind of the 3rd series in the Percy Jackson universe, and in this series we're following Apollo, who has been stripped of his godly powers and made mortal after his dad Zeus gets angry with him, and he is our narrator for the series, and I just find him to be so funny. These books have humor in a way that the other books didn't, and I think, again, it's because Apollo's just got a very interesting way at looking at things and looking at the situation he's found himself in, so I've just really loved being in his head and chuckling along as he gets himself into these situations and then makes jokes about them. And the third is Reichs from Spellslinger. He is another character that cracks me up. From the moment he showed up in Spellslinger, I knew that if he stuck around, he was going to be a new favorite character of mine, and I just, again, absolutely love him. Again, he's another character that makes me laugh, and I really enjoy characters like that I find humorous, so he is definitely up there, and I'm looking forward to reading more of the Spellslinger series just so that I can see what other antics Reichs gets up to. Question 10, books that made you cry. So first up, I'm going to say The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. Basically, every Kristen Hanna book I have ever read has made me cry, so I went into this knowing there was a very good chance I was going to cry, and while it wasn't my favorite of the Kristen Hanna books, she did indeed end up making me cry. The second was When You Trap a Tiger by Tay Keller, and this one was a bit of a surprise because I was not expecting that book to hit me emotionally the way it did. I mean, I went into it kind of blind, so that's probably part of why I was surprised by the fact that it got emotional, but there were some lines at the end that just connected with me so well that it left me in tears. And then the third is one of the Warriors books, and I don't want to say which one because I feel like if I did, it might spoil it for you. Like, if you're reading along in the series, you know that this is a book that made me absolutely sob, I feel like you go into it expecting certain things to happen, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody who's reading the Warriors series, but there is one book in particular in the Warriors series that I have read this year that left me absolutely sobbing. And I cannot remember the last time I cried so hard while reading a book, but the Aarons definitely did it and ripped my heart out, and just, but like in the best possible way. Like I don't want to say anymore because I don't want to spoil it, but I don't think I will ever be able to read that book without crying, even knowing what's coming. So yeah, one of the Warriors book. Question 11, book that made you happy. So I like that we get to go from these books made me sob to these books make me smile. And the first two that come to mind are the Tea Dragon Society and the Tea Dragon Festival by Kay O'Neill. I read both of these books with gigantic smiles on my face. They make my heart happy. I definitely want to own them so that I can read them in the future when I need a bit of a pick-me-up, because they're just such cute, sweet books, and I absolutely love them. And I'm expecting the third book in the series to give me the same vibes, so I can't wait to read that one too. I just love these books about tea dragons and the people that take care of them. So those are two books that definitely made me happy. And another that comes to mind is Wayside School Beneath the Cloud of Doom by Louise Sachar. This is the first book I finished this year, and it is the fourth book in the Wayside Stories series. And I read the Wayside Stories books when I was like a kid. I don't know how old exactly, but those were some of my favorite books when I was young. So when I saw that he released a fourth book in the series like 25 years after the first three, I was so excited to read it, and it was such a nostalgia trip to be back in Wayside School with the same kids that we knew from the first three books and the same employees of the school, and it was just so nice. And it's another book that made my heart happy to be back with characters that I loved so much as a kid. Question 12. Most beautiful book you've bought or received this year. I have three. So first up, I've got This Tender Land by William Kent Kruger, and I love the sun over the water, and it's just such a pretty visual that I couldn't imagine not including this in one of my most beautiful books. The second is Ruby in the Sky, which again, we have the sun sinking and like the beautiful sky. And again, it's just another one that gives you a beautiful sky scene. And I feel like both of those are something you could really picture in real life. Like, I think we've all seen something like these in real life. And then the third is 13 Treasures by Michelle Harrison. I love the detail on the side and all of the colors and how it's sparkly with the dragonflies up here. It really speaks to me. So these would definitely be three covers that I just think are stunning that I managed to get this year. And lastly, question 13, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I feel like I could say everything, because really all of the books that are on my shelves that I haven't read yet this year I really want to read. Some of my more obvious answers are related to the goals I made at the beginning of the year, and that would be I want to catch up on the Warriors universe, so I would like to continue to read those. I had hoped to get through a majority of the books I hauled in 2019, so I'm going to say those are also a priority. And then I had 5 series that I wanted to read / catch up on in 2021, and I've been doing pretty well with most of them except for the Pendragon series. There are 10 books in the main series and like 3 companion novels, and I've read one of them. So definitely some more Pendragon books because I have been really slacking on those books so far this year. And we have a guest appearance who is not happy that I'm picking her up. Hi, Blitz. I think she's going to be joining me for the rest of the video. Thankfully, I only have to wrap this up. So that is the mid-year book freakout tag. If any of you have done this tag, link the video in the description below and I'll go check it out. If you don't do BookTube, feel free to tell me the answers to any of these questions in the comments section below. I would love to know what some of your answers are. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a yo-yo emoji, like this video, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!